Hello, y'all. This is Husband Interested in Science, episode 2, so to speak. Last week I said it was husbands interested in talking about science, but that made no sense. It sort of, and when you speak that in a sentence, that doesn't really make any sense. So I decided it made more sense to just change the title to Husband Interested in Science because that makes more sense. And the acronym kind of works with what we're going with the hot pod. It's his. His and her type deal. So I don't know if Marta's ever going to do a her podcast. But yeah, this husband interested in science. So one of our listeners suggested, smart husband interested in talking science. So you could sort of sound out or create the acronym in your brain. He's a clever guy, let me tell you. But yeah, this episode is going to be maybe same length. I enjoyed it last week, so I kind of wanted to do it again. Gave me a little nice outlet. It also forces me to look more into what's going on in the scientific community, which I kind of like. Reading up on what's happening. I can't get to everything that's going on because there's so many papers released each and every week. But it just I like reading up on stuff that tickles my fancy, and it's nice to know new things. So maybe some people out there like this, maybe no one listens to it, but I enjoy it, and I'll keep putting them out there. So here we go. Starting off, apparently, I knew all about this, but this is an article over at Massive Science by Sarah Olivier, talking more about growing meat in a lab. So, quote, researchers have been working, if you didn't know, on cellular agriculture, which aims to combine biotechnology with food and tissue engineering to produce meat from cell cultures in a lab. So, for those that didn't know, the first cellular burger was built in 2013. So that's way back when, and probably cost a fortune to make. And this animal meat, this new way of growing animal meat has been slowly growing over time. But this idea is not really new. I don't know if anybody's read novels about synthetic meat, or you see it in TV shows or movies in this sci-fi genre where they're talking about growing meat. And just always seemed like a kind of a cool idea, and probably a smart idea going forward, especially with, you never know when livestock will run out. Who knows in the dystopian future that we create as humans, because, things are always going bad in today's day and age, apparently. So what is cultured meat? So the meat basically consists of the exact same cells that any meat you would get now in the grocery store. The only difference is that the meat was grown inside a culture flask, so like a little flask, just picture a little flask, instead of an animal. So an animal basically is born, all the cells are built through the animal, it's held together, and by the way, cells are put together when, animals mate and stuff, and then a baby's born. You know how that works, right? But this is basically grown through, through a flask. I keep saying If you didn't know, then maybe you wouldn't be here. This actually I didn't know. Quote, when those cells grow unstructured, they can mimic ground products like sausages, hamburgers, and chicken nuggets. If Marta's listening, I'm sure she's excited about grown chicken nuggets because that's her. She really enjoys chicken nuggets. That's sort of her guilty pleasure food. Don't tell her I said that. So if those cells are actually organized or structured, they become more like steak or chicken breasts. So how do you actually create a quote-unquote structure for this meat? Well, they put in, how when you build like a house or something, there's scaffolding where you sort of support it as you build it, and you go up because, you can't really go into the building itself. It's maybe not completely supported yet, so you have scaffolding around. So that's kind of what you do with the meat. However, you're not using wood or metal. You're using edible scaffolds that are used to support the meat in the growing process, and actually gives the appearance of cuts in the meat as you would see any other normal meat. So once this becomes a cheaper, easier way to grow meat, there's an assumption that there will be farms for quote-unquote cellular agriculture. So I found this quote interesting in the piece by Sarah. Quote, instead of housing cattle, the farms will be a place to grow cells, assemble them into meat products, and store and vacuum seal them for quality. This type of facility is still on the wish list for producers because cultivation and harvesting processes are still being optimized. Medium-sized meat cultivators may be an alternative to blend in with livestock industry that can be used along with traditional farming practices. Cultured meat might also be produced at home with smaller devices, as some initiatives seem to be encouraging. End quote. Could you imagine growing your own in like a little tiny petri dish? Always in science classes way back when, you grow like bacteria. I remember that was a classic experiment in a petri dish. Imagine just growing your own sausage. Sausage, that sounds good. You can get a little horseradish. Actually, why did I say horseradish? I don't like that. Just a straight sausage. That's what I like to eat. It's simple, easy. So studies actually need to be done to see if there's any health risks with grown meat. Me personally, I don't see health risks. I feel like they would be healthier if you're growing them in a lab straight from the cells and not from an animal where you can have other bacteria and viruses, contained in that animal. So it needs to be tweaked a little bit to find the proper taste or consistency of the meat, but it's still come a long way since that first burger was built or created in 2013. I remember in relation to this, hearing about that it did cost like millions of dollars to create this one burger or create this one thing because they didn't have the processes to create this. But now they've gotten it down so far from that million mark now to like $18,000 to make a cut of meat. So you can see how rapidly in the last 5 years it's improved product wise to cause it to be cheaper to create. And I can only imagine this will be good things in the future. And I always, when I read these articles or about grown meat, I wonder what happened to these vegetarians or vegans. They're always up in arms about, treating, or PETA for that matter, when it comes to this type of stuff. Obviously, you don't abuse any other animals there. But when it comes to livestock specifically, what happens? Like, you're not abusing livestock anymore if you're just straight up growing meat. So now are these vegans or vegetarians going to be eating this grown meat, or are they going to be upset that it's not natural now? I don't know. I don't know exactly how it goes. I'm not a vegan or a vegetarian. Maybe I should ask one to get their opinion on this and not just assume that they're going to be up or going to start eating meat or however they think. Maybe one will believe one thing, one will think the other. So it's interesting. I'm interested to see how this goes. It'd be kind of cool if you can. There's a device out there in the next 10, 20, 30 years where you can actually grow your own meat. I think it was like Jimmy Neutron. Back when I was younger, he built a machine that you could just click the button and all of a sudden it would pop out a certain food or certain prepared food. So I could just imagine that, where you click, I want ground lamb, and there you go, and then you can make a Mediterranean bowl. Or you want barbecue short ribs, so you click short ribs, except for then you have to build the bones and everything. And I don't know how fast this process takes. There wasn't much information on that. I probably need to look more into exactly how long it takes to build these cells into the meat that you're looking for. I can only imagine. It's probably not the quickest process, so to speak. And maybe that's the whole why it costs still a lot, is trying to speed up the process. But that's only speculation. Moving on from an article over at Science News by Emily Conover. Apparently there's pasta in space, if you didn't know. But this isn't actually your normal quote-unquote pasta. This nuclear pasta, so to speak, is predicted to exist in a dead star, or a neutron star, as it would normally called. So how strong is this substance, this nuclear pasta? So apparently breaking this stuff would require 10 billion times the force needed to crack steel. If you're not sure, or you weren't sure exactly how a neutron star is formed, I'm just speaking it's a dead star, but it's after a dying star explodes, which ends up leaving behind neutron-rich remains, which are then, due to gravitational forces, packed really tightly together. The compression of this material can cause the creation of some materials with weird properties, so to speak, nuclear pasta. So how does the pasta actually form? I'm going to get there. So the article states, quote, about a kilometer below the surface of the neutron star, atomic nuclei are squeezed together so close that they merge into clumps of nuclear matter, a dense mixture of neutrons and protons. These as yet theoretical clumps are thought to be shaped like blobs, tubes, or sheets, and are named after their noodle lookalikes, including gnocchi, spaghetti, and lasagna. I mean, why not? I mean, scientists, they have a great sense of humor, am I right? So apparently the material ends up being close to 100 trillion times more dense than water. I don't know this is all theoretical, of course. They predict this, and they have to figure out ways to go about, properly proving it. I think they show that because this neutron star is so, which I found fascinating in the article, but I didn't actually write it down, so I'm going off of my brain. But because the gravitational forces are so strong that a quote-unquote mountain on this that would cause like gravitational waves throughout space and time, all that I would need for a quote-unquote mountain would be like a centimeter tall. That would be considered a mountain on these neutron stars. Cool, right? Cool. Moving on. So apparently zombies may be in our brain. This is another article I think over at I think it was Science Daily I got it from. I didn't write it down, but it was written in the Mayo Clinic. So, in a mouse model for brain disease, sentient cells accumulate prior to cognitive loss. Darren Baker, a PhD at the Mayo Clinic, he's a molecular biologist, stated, quote, sentient cells are known to accumulate with advancing natural age and at sites related to diseases of aging, including osteoarthritis. Oh man, I should have prepped and tried to speak these words. Goodness, I forgot about these other ones. I know Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and other neurodegenerate diseases. He continues by making the statement that when they were able to eliminate these cells from the mouse or whatever they're I'm guessing a mouse. The life of said mouse was supposed to be extended and was healthier. So the team was actually able to identify 2 brain cells that were likely to become sentient. So become zombies, basically, where they don't do anything. The microglia and the astrocytus. These cells are important in that they support brain health and the overall functioning of our brain. So it makes sense. We need those. Dr. Baker describes discovery as surprising because, quote, at the time their research started, a causal link between sentient cells and neurodegenerate diseases had not been established. So it seems, end quote. So it seems, we're getting closer to figuring out how to stop these very horrible mental diseases. And it's kind of sad when these take hold in anybody because, the brain is still such a vast collection of electricity firing off, basically, and it's very sensitive. You can't really go into it and exploring as easily, quote unquote, easily as other surgeries and such. It's a very delicate situation. So where does actually the future of this research go? They're actually looking into the process of removing these zombie cells after the mental disease has taken hold. So right now they're removing it prior to any mental disease actually, being created. So if they can actually show a way to slow it down, these mental diseases from taking over, I think it's a step in the right direction. If they also mentioned in the article that these sentient cells are related also to like inflammation in the brain and everything that's related to these mental diseases. And I think it would be a step in the right direction if you're able to slow down these mental diseases. I can only imagine how beneficial that would be to be able to extend, a period where somebody's in the proper cognitive state compared to, when it finally takes over and they're not quite themselves. So I can only imagine that's a benefit because prolonging their ability or cognitive ability is very important. And it leads to a happier life, I think. If you are able to extend it for a year, 2 years, I'm not entirely sure what happens or how long they can extend it. I'm sure that's what future research is going on. I think that's what Dr. Parker stated in the article. So that actually is kind of exciting. I mean, you see that now with extending. They haven't found cure for AIDS, so to speak, or HIV. I forget what the cure would be for, because it's HIV switches over to AIDS. Can't quite remember, but now they have medicines that help fight and prolong your life for such a long period of time that you can actually live a healthy, relatively healthy, normal life for way longer than when it originally happened, when HIV sort of took hold. So I'm excited to see how this research progresses, and I think there's more and more people that have been donating money and putting money into the Alzheimer's Association and trying to find research that'll, be beneficial in the long term. And I think it'll happen eventually, I hope. So moving on to the final one, getting a little more tech-based, but still sort of sciencey, which I kind of like. I like mixing it up. So a team at the University of California, San Diego, are working on a stamp-sized patch that can accurately and unintrusively, that's important, so you're not shoving things into your body, measure your blood pressure. So the patch works, quote, by sending out ultrasonic waves that penetrate the skin and reflect off the wearer's tissue and blood. Those reflections are sent back to the sensor and then to a laptop that processes the blood pressure data. For now, at least, the patch must be wired to a laptop and a power source too. So they're still in the prototyping phases, obviously. It is the first known wearable device that can sense deep below the surface of the skin, end quote. So the benefits of this device is that you'd be able to get a consistent feedback on your blood pressure, especially of people who are required to regularly monitor their heart rate, especially if they have heart issues. I just think tech is kind of cool, especially in the science field. This is go a long way. I know right now it may not be as accurate as some of the, I think it said the quote-unquote gold standard of measuring heart rate over time is, I think they have to shove like a catheter in your heart valve, which seems very intrusive and something that a lot of people don't want. I think the more tech gets involved in the medical community, the less intrusive things get, the more accurate these things can become. It's more people, I think, will be happier to go to the doctor because they won't have to shove multiple things into their body. That's the one thing I get worried about when I go to the doctor. I don't know about anybody else out there, is I just don't want them, one, I don't want them to find anything. I want to be healthy. And two, I'm worried if they do find stuff, they're going to have to be very, with a scalpel cut into things or shove things into my body and look at things, and it's all trying to make me feel healthier, but it's not the best experience. So I think being able to monitor this in real time, if they're able to, not have it completely hooked up to a laptop, which is a little hindrance if you're trying to walk around with this patch-sized stamp that's on your neck, it's going to be out there. But it'd be kind of cool if they're able to make it battery-powered or have, just because I can't imagine it draws that much power, but it is small to begin with, so they have to figure out a power source where they can connect it and also connect specifically to a Wi-Fi connection, I guess, for a laptop. So it would be cool if it could be monitored specifically by your doctor at all times, and so you could set up specifically notifications for your doctor, for yourself, when you reach a certain level that's not good for you in your quote-unquote current condition or whatever heart condition that you're in. So I think that's pretty cool. And yeah, so wow, we're only 18 minutes in. Wow. This was I had one more article than last week, I believe. Yeah, I had 3 last week, 4 this week. So I hope you all enjoyed this quick little science episode, whatever it is. Maybe you enjoy it, maybe you don't. Maybe you just ignore it in your feed. Maybe you listen to it. I don't know. Maybe you learned something. Maybe this is pointless. I don't know. I need your feedback, which you can. Give me your feedback, hotpod@gmail.com. Be on the lookout for our next actual husband and wife talks, which will be next Tuesday. That should be exciting. I don't know exactly what we're talking about yet, so I can't tease anything. But remember, please give us a rating on our feed. Scroll down if you're on iTunes. Scroll down and give us a 5 stars. Maybe write us a review. It'll be really helpful with our standing in iTunes, if it does help with the standings anymore. But if you're listening to us on any other device, just share us with your friends, family, other people that you find you think would be interested in maybe this podcast or the other one that we do on Tuesday, the main one. I kind of want to keep doing this. I'm going to try to be consistent with it because I do enjoy researching science articles and trying to put it together. That's a quick little tidbit, so I'm not taking too much of your time. I don't want to be, all over the place talking for an hour about things that I don't know completely about. That's what I always get worried about when I do singular episode, especially about science, where I'm not completely well versed in the knowledge and I'm just reading and I find it fascinating and trying to reiterate and have my own interjections and thoughts about it. So I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to try to keep up with it because I enjoyed it, and it's a nice release for me personally. So please follow us on Twitter at HotPod. You can find us facebook.com/HotPod. We post pictures from time to time of things that we do. We haven't done it in a while because we've been away and busy, but we'll probably get to posting some more in the near future. So I know I personally appreciate all you listeners listening. I'm sure that Marta appreciates it too. Please stick with us. You'll hear from us on Tuesday. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Have a good one. Keep on learning. Man, keep on learning. Really, Adam? Okay. Bye.